Hi, my name is Helene, and with this podcast, I dive deep into the world of chronic illness. What is living with a chronic illness like? What are ways to redefine your purpose when life hit you so hard? How do people do this? I am on the lookout for answers to find out if there is a way to have a life filled with freedom, joy, and happiness, even when it feels like you're a prisoner in your own body. Welcome. Welcome back to the Spoonies Community Podcast. I'm here today with my first guest speaker, Amelia Peckham. She is the owner of Cool Crutches. After an accident that she had when she was 19 years old in 2005, she sustained a T12 spinal injury, which was an incomplete spinal paralysis. Then in the hospital, they told her that she was able to use crutches. While she was using crutches, she got blisters in her hand and hand injuries, which obviously was not what was great for her. So a wheelchair was proposed. She said fine. Her mom was like, wait, hold on. If you can use crutches, your hands are fine. We are going to be looking for crutches that can actually help you and work. After some research that was nowhere to be found, her mom said, we're going to create some. And that's how Cool Crutches was born. But next to being the owner of Cool Crutches, I've really got to know her as such a powerful and strong woman, super honest, super raw and vulnerable, and everything that you've been sharing within our Spoonies community as a guest speaker within our community as well. And you've got such a big heart for this community. So I am very, very glad that you're here now as my first guest speaker on the podcast to tell your story.
Well, thank you for having me. I can't believe I'm the first one. Very exciting.
Super exciting.
Thank you. It's been so nice, talking to you and talking to your community. So to be able to do this is amazing. I'm excited.
Amazing. Can you take us back to before the accident? Who were you like? What were you like? What were you enjoying? Where were you at 19 years old?
I was in my second year at uni. So I was at uni in Scotland in Edinburgh. I was studying history and Spanish and was planning to do 2 years. And then my third year would have been out. So I was hoping to go to South America and live and work out there. And then obviously, don't know, all went Pete Tong, didn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're pretty bog standard 19-year-old. I think I minded more about where I was going out at the weekend than I did doing anything sensible.
Than history and Spanish.
Yeah. I don't think I was doing much history or Spanish. But I mean, work-wise, I'd set my heart on working in advertising, and I'd done quite a lot of work experience to kind of lead into that. And that was my end goal, was to be fluent in Spanish and then be able to work, hopefully, in advertising either in the UK or Spain. But yeah, that was kind of a loose plan, luckily.
Luckily, because you turn out,
No.
in a way, still
I can't speak
advertising, but it's
Spanish,
completely, no. Okay, fair enough.
That sums
Fair
it
enough.
up, doesn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. So your accident was with a quad bike, right?
Yeah, so a friend of mine was having her 21st birthday. And because we were in Scotland, there was incredible countryside that we'd never really visited. So we were like, let's go for a weekend. We rented a little cottage, and there were meant to be 15 of us, I think, on the Saturday. But I'd got up with her on the Friday to set up and sort everything out. And we'd basically gone, let's go and have a look at what we could do. Could we do a walk? How far could we go? Is there a pub? And I was like, great. So off we went and realised it was going to be 4 hours walking. So we were like, well, this isn't great. Can we drive up there? And they were like, no, you can't take a car. So we were like, okay, fine. There's a quad bike. Okay, great. Let's go. So we'd all grown up together, so there were 4 of us on it. And so knew each other really well. We'd all grown up in the countryside. We'd all been on quad bikes. I'd never driven one, but it wasn't particularly a stupid decision. Obviously it was a stupid decision, but I don't think any of us thought it was going to be a bad one. But the problem was we were in the middle of the Highlands, no phone reception, nothing. It was miles of hills, tiny track, huge drop on one side, and I was driving. So my friend drove us out there and then I drove back, and we were going so slowly because it was such a huge drop, but we hit a pothole and basically one of the 4 wheels just slid off, and I was like, it's going to tip, go. And it's really weird. It happened really quickly, but I was like, if I jump, I feel like I'm less likely to be injured, ironically. And the others all held on. And I essentially rolled down a hill and my hips stopped on a rock and the front of me kept going. So I just completely smashed a vertebra in my back. Luckily, everyone else was fine. And one of them went the whole way down and landed in a river with the quad bike on top of her. So the fact that I was the only one that was injured was huge. One of the girls broke her finger, but it was like fine. And from that moment, like I knew something was really wrong immediately. The one who was in the river at the bottom came running up and she said, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Is everyone okay?" And the other two had stood up and they were like, "We'll go and get an ambulance." And I was like, "Okay." Mainly because we all thought she'd broken her finger. And I was like, "Could you just do me a favor? I might have broken one of my feet. Could you take my boots off?" And she was like, "You're not wearing any boots." And at that point I was like, "Oh, okay, I can't feel my legs." And she was like, "Can you feel your knees?" And I was like, "No, I can't feel anything." So she was like, "Okay, don't worry, we'll get..." And that's when it went from an ambulance to an air ambulance. I was helicoptered off the side of the mountain. It took 6 hours. I was taken to NE. I was pumped full of morphine. They didn't know what to do with an injury as severe as that. They airlifted me again to Glasgow, which is a specialist spinal unit. And that was like 3 days afterwards or something. That was when it started to be like, oh, this is really serious. And up until I got to Glasgow, I thought I'd broken my legs. And I was like adamant that I hadn't done anything. And I didn't know what a spinal injury was. I didn't know anyone with a disability. I didn't know anyone with a neurological condition. I didn't know that nerves in your back affected your legs. Like I just had no idea. So it was a bit of a shock, is probably an understatement. But very quickly, they said, "You're not going to walk and it's going to be mobility aids to move." So that was always the kind of prognosis. And then eventually one of the consultants was really lovely and I kept kind of trying to have a chat with him, bearing in mind I'm like flat on my back, can't feel anything. And I'm high as a kite on drugs. You can't really lie or like have any kind of filter when you're taking that amount of drugs. So I was like, what am I looking at? And he was like, best case scenario, you might, and I say might, be able to put one foot in front of the other with a pair of crutches. And I was like, okay, cool. So I took that as like, crutches.
That's my goal. Yeah, crutches. That's going to be...
I'm going to be on crutches. And he was like, okay. But they had to do 2 operations, one to stabilise my spine so they could fly me to another hospital that were willing to operate on me, because he said the MRI actually looks like someone's taken a hammer to a meringue. It's so smashed that you're going to struggle to find a surgeon who's comfortable opening you up and trying to put you back together. And he said, I'm not comfortable doing that, but we will do everything we can to find someone who is. Anyway, they did find someone, but they were in Stoke Mandeville, which is probably the most famous unit in the UK for spinal injuries. So they airlifted me, they pinned my back in an operation to make it safe for me to go in an aeroplane. And then I got there, and that's kind of where it all began. And that's where I eventually did get my hands on a pair of crutches. But I had a bone graft, I had reconstruction surgery, I had my whole vertebra above to the vertebra below fused with bone from my pelvis. And then I guess like 3 months after my accident, they said, you can go to rehab. So I was like, can't get me the crutches. And they were like, no, wheelchair. And I was like, okay, fine, get me the wheelchair. And then when I did obviously start using crutches, that was horrendous because I just didn't have any power in my legs. So it was all through my hands. And then, that's kind of where it went.
You say that it basically started for you after surgery. Was that because it came to your conscious mind that this was actually so much worse? Because if I hear your story, I would say, well, maybe like, you know, if you don't feel your legs already at the full, like on that hill, or is it more because afterwards you're more aware of like what the consequences really are?
I think it's such a shock. And also everybody's focused on you and you have no control over the situation. So everybody around you is in really significant shock. And I think my role at that point was to damage limit them and manage everybody else, which sounds ridiculous when you're like, you're obviously the patient, you should be looking after you, but I can't do anything. And, you know, I couldn't even pee by myself. I had catheters, I had bedpans. I was like, they had to tilt the bed so I didn't get bed sores. It was miserable. But I did, what I could control is slapping a smile on so that when someone came to see me that they didn't panic. And I think for the first, until I'd had that operation when I was fused and it was safe and I wasn't going to cause any more damage, that was my main priority because I was like, I can't get out of bed because there's a risk that I'll do more damage to my spine. And in Glasgow, they said, you know, you can either have this operation or you can lie flat for 12 weeks. And then once you get to 12 weeks, it's much safer, but you're not safe. You could still do more damage to your spine. And I was like, nah. Let's just get safe. I didn't want to be responsible basically for making it any worse. And I think like even now I'm like, you have to work with what you've got when you've got it at whatever stage you are.
Yeah.
That was kind of the only thing I could do. So I don't think until that operation was done, that was only when it was like, okay, there's nothing else that can be done surgically here. I'm out of consultants. I'm into physio.
Yeah.
It's now I can do stuff and it's down to me. And also with a spinal injury, so hideous. They're like, the first 6 months is key. And by the time you get to the end of it, you'll know neurologically what you've got. And it's up to you what you do with that. But beyond 6 months, it's not going to change. So the more you can fire up your body and try and stimulate the nerves that are there, the higher your chance of being able to move. But it's down to you, which is kind of ridiculous because now in hindsight, I'm like, your nerves are either damaged or they're not. Like, you know, all these stories of people being like, I'm never going to walk again. And then they're skipping through, you know, fields. You're like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
Doctors will tell you worst case scenario. And they said to me, you're not going to walk again. And then they have to do that because otherwise if I don't walk, and they said I would, I can sue them. So they will always give you worst case scenario. I was always going to have an opportunity because it wasn't a complete injury. It was incomplete to do more than they thought. Yeah. But I didn't know that at the time. And I think that's where it was kind of painted worse. And then anything that I did became a bonus, which is a really nice way of doing it, to be honest.
Did that also give you the motivation to really fight as hard as you could because you knew 6 months is my limit, like I need to work hard?
Yes. And in a way, I think that's a really positive thing because obviously I do a lot of work with other people who are chronically ill now and they don't get that. And I think that first 6 months is often you need to do very little to get what your baseline is. For me, it was like, you need to do everything you possibly can. Yeah. And actually, the more you put into this, the more you're likely to get out of it. And you can't do any more damage. So you've got nothing to lose. So it was essentially a stamina game. But I think, at 19, you don't have any stamina. No. I was probably the most unfit I've ever been.
Really?
I didn't have, and I was worrying about, whether I was going to go out for dinner with my boyfriend on Friday or whether I was going to go out with like 50 people. And like, was my boyfriend going to hang on to me or was he going to be like, see you later? So my perception and reality was quite juvenile, but I almost think in a way, there's obviously never a right time to have an accident like that. And I don't think when you're young is necessarily a good time, but I do think it meant I had the opportunity to be like, I don't have anyone that I'm responsible for. I don't have a job. I can just focus on this and do as much as I can that will then impact the rest of my life, but also everyone else. My parents, my friends, it was a huge shock for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, because how did your friends react? Obviously, you were in an accident with your friends as well. So I can imagine that for them, seeing their best friend,
it's
knowing the
so difficult. Yeah.
Do you still have conversations with them?
Yes. So one of them I'd grown up with and I'm still really good friends with. And her sister is like my oldest friend. So, and the other two I haven't seen, but only because of proximity. But they were, I think we were all very, very, very lucky, myself included, that A, that I was the one driving and I was the one injured. B, that there was only a broken finger outside of my back. But also that we were all safe, to be honest. My biggest thing was like, thank God it's me. If someone else was sitting in this hospital bed and I'd been driving it, I think that mental weight would have been worse than any physical stuff I was experiencing. And equally, I think they were just like, we so want her to be okay. But also I was responsible for chucking 3 people off a quad bike. That I think that was the first time I'd ever realised that your actions have implications on everybody. And it was my decision. I chose to drive that quad bike and you do feel a huge weight, but they knew me well enough to know that, and they were on me with it for long enough. And luckily we'd already done one up and down. But yeah, I think it's really difficult. And also there are friends of mine who obviously weren't there, who then came to hospital and had that like slightly hideous shock when you walk in and see somebody wired up to everything. But you will know as well as I do, it's the fastest way to know who your friends are. You lose some and you gain some. Yeah. But the best ones are the ones that stick with you through it. One of my friends came every single morning at 9 a.m. The entire time I was in Glasgow. She got the train from Edinburgh to Glasgow every morning and was there the second they let visitors in. And I'm talking like she came in her Halloween outfit, having not been to bed one day. And I was like, oh my God. She was like, well, not going to turn up. I was like, do you want to bed? You need to go to sleep. Like, so,
wow, that is so beautiful.
The ones that were amazing were like really, really, really amazing and still are.
Yeah. Wow. And then after 3 months, which I guess it must meant, because physically you can't really do much at that point yet. You need to wait till you can recover, till you're recovered as well enough for you to be able to do the rehab. But then mentally, I guess in those 3 months, it slowly starts to sink in. Like, what helped you get through those first months?
I think my family were amazing. Like, my granny came to see me, my grandpa, was quite a frightening man. He was a very successful, very northern Yorkshireman, and he actually came up on my first physio session. And he was like, right, you're going to pedal on a bike. And I was like, I haven't, but also like no one understood. Like, if you lie flat for 12 weeks, you don't just get up and go into a wheelchair and off you go pedaling. Like, they have to strap you to a bed, and every day they tilt you a bit higher until you're not sick. So like you'd get vertigo and throw up. So I'd done a bit of that, which he obviously hadn't seen. And he'd just seen me wheel into physio, and he was like, right, faster, faster. And honestly, like, I was like, oh my God, he's really keen that I do this. And I really want to try really hard. But like 20 minutes in, I was being sick in a bucket outside. He was like, oh, maybe not so fast. So I was like, but I needed that change of scene. So every time someone came in, like, my mum was there every single day. She was amazing. She'd be like, right, today we're going to focus on this, or like, let's go and chat to one of the nurses, or like, I just think the people around you, and I do still believe that that's why I regained as much as I did and why I've gone on to do as much as I have, because I know. So when I was in Glasgow, there were 2 guys in the beds opposite me. So there were 4 of us on a ward. One of the beds, people came and went, and the 2 guys opposite me were in their early 20s. So they're a bit older than me, both professional athletes. So like, I think both were footballers, but kind of semi-professional. And one was from his neck down and one was from his waist down. And both of them had 1 or 2 people that came to visit them. And both of them were like beyond a black hole of depression.
Yeah.
And very much like, if I can't play football, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And there was nothing to pull them out of it apart from the 3 of us. And I was like, the difference between me making it out of here and them making it out of here is the people around us. And you can't underestimate that kind of impact that it will have. And that, they're still your mates. They still came in and said, took the piss out of me and said, you look terrible. And I'm like, thanks. So do you. Like, or like came in
Halloween
the one
outfit.
that came, in your Halloween outfit, still pissed from the night before. But she also, she famously would come in every morning and accidentally sit on the end of the bed, which was either the button that went like that and I'm not supposed to move, or my catheter bag. So it was like a running joke that I'd be like, quick, she's coming, like, get my catheter bag out of the way. But like, you need that to break it up. But I think that whole first bit until I got to the 3-month mark was about getting to the 3-month mark. Yeah. And then once I got to the 3-month mark, it was like, right, okay, now I'm fixed.
Yeah.
In a consultant's view.
Yeah.
We're on to the next thing. And that's when you're like, I've got an opportunity to actually move and figure out what this looks like if I don't live with my parents, if I'm not in a hospital, if I'm not in a care place, like, will I be able to live independently?
Exactly. You need to set your whole expectations on life in such a different way. And as you said, like, you didn't know anyone with a disability or with spinal cord injuries. Where did you get that inspiration from back then?
I think the other people on the ward were brilliant. And actually, nobody boring breaks their back. I know that's a really bad thing to say, but like, I was kind of like, oh my God, the people in the next door room to me are paralysed from their neck down, or like, I shouldn't go and have a chat with them. And because I was in there for so long and the nurses were so nice, they were like, oh, Joanne will definitely chat to you. So I'd like wheel over and go and see Joanne. And she had neck down. She'd been beaten up in a nightclub. She'd been dragged out by bouncers and she'd broken her neck and she had lost everything from her neck down. And I was like, are you okay? And she was like, yeah, but I'm like 9 months later. She was in physio. She was trying to use crutches. Yeah. She was also on a dating app. She would put her laptop here up. She was online dating. Obviously never met them in person. She was like, I don't care. It's just fun. Keeps me busy. I was like, what? She met someone. So her main thing was that because she was paralysed from here down, her boobs had gone like, whoop. She was like, I want a boob job. So that was her like motivation, was she was like, I just want to chat to people, and I want to figure out how I'm going to get a boob job, how I'm going to earn money. And I was like, it doesn't matter what your incentive is. No. She wants a boob job. Yeah. I want crutches. That was it.
Yeah.
And there were 12 of us on the
Yeah.
ward together that were with each other 24/7. They were all really funny, really punchy. They'd all had really big careers. They were interesting. And I was like, everybody outside of these four walls thinks we're a waste of space because we're disabled. But in these four walls, we could set up a company. Like these are really, really brilliant people that I just want to know more and more and more about. So really, and also you're trying to keep your sanity, aren't you? So like physio was like a blessing. It was just like, I just can't wait to get to physio.
Yeah.
And you could only really do 2 hours because then you'd need to sleep for 4 hours and then you went back to physio. But it was, I guess, looking for the people that understood what a spinal injury was, people who were further down it than me, effectively a community just on a really small scale within the hospital.
Yeah.
That I could say to them,
Beautiful.
oh my God, I'm going from, 10 degrees to 40 degrees today on the tilt bed. If I'm sick, please can you not laugh at me? And they're like, don't worry about it. We'll just part you facing the window.
Yeah.
And then if you're sick, no one will see. I'm like, thanks, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's like that mutual understanding of really.
Like we're all kind of in this and it's not nice.
Yeah.
But we'll make it as nice as we can.
Exactly. Do you still speak to them?
No, it's so sad. Like, because I'd been transferred down to Stoke Mandeville, I was the last one that left. So that's the other thing, is that you kind of can go and see the people who are further down the line from you.
Yeah.
But you would offer, if anyone who's come in the last 6 weeks wants to talk to somebody, I'm here and my door is totally open. They can wheel in whenever they want, but it's up to them.
Yeah.
And I think where I was really lucky was the people who were further along than me were all really, really like fun, charismatic people. And I don't know that there was enough of that when new people were coming in when I left.
Yeah.
So I did, and also the severity of people's injuries massively implicates where they are and how long it takes mentally to come to terms with it. And a lot of the people that came in after me were neck down.
Yeah.
And, that is a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if they wanted to talk to someone who was waist down and not complete. So, it's so complicated. And I think mentally it's a really tricky place to be.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. I was just like, I want to talk to as many people as possible, but I hadn't lost as much and I had more to gain because I wasn't completely severed.
Yeah.
So it's a very strange thing, but I don't think it did me any harm.
No.
Probably shouldn't say that.
And then, no, that's okay. And then obviously the 3 months have passed. You start working on rehab, which I think is also very interesting because so many people, when they talk about rehab, they think, oh, you're training very hard in terms of you're spending an hour on a bike and you're spending, time behind a rowing machine and stuff like that. Whereas obviously also from my own experience, I started with, moving my ankle towards my chair to get some strength back, and that was it. Like literally the tiniest movement,
just trying to wiggle your toes, or like lift your foot straight, not like that, which is what I can only lift one of my feet like that. So it was always trying to lift it straight up was more important than going on a bike or but also massage. Like they were adamant that I had to have a massage every week so that the muscles weren't overcompensating and then stopping my nerves from kicking in because they were overcompensating. So like it does totally reboot your idea of like
rehabilitation,
what's healthy.
Yeah.
Yes.
How, because now let's go forward to, obviously it was a long period of rehabilitation, I'm assuming.
Yes.
During that moment, as I said in the intro as well, you were trying to walk with crutches, but the crutches that they were giving to you were not the right ones for your hands.
In their bog standard, like they're what everybody gets given when they're in hospital. But my injury was so severe that I didn't have anything from my waist down. So all of my weight was going through my hands. So slightly like a double amputee who I don't know any double amputees that use crutches 24/7. Like it's insanity. It was more that the level of my injury wasn't going to work with them. And I think I gritted my teeth and went, I want crutches. I will do anything to be on crutches. I'm not giving up. And I'm not having my lack of being able to do this be the reason why I can't. So I carried on for too long, to a point where the blisters on my hand burst, they got infected, and the doctor was like, you go back to bed and you get yourself a wheelchair. And I was like, fair enough. Yeah, that's a pretty valid point.
And how far into your rehabilitation was this? Like, how long did it take for you to get to
just
this
after
point?
the 3 months.
Okay.
Just after the 3 months. It was like I did the tilt bed and all of that, and I was straight onto a walking frame.
Wow.
You have to do a standing bed. So you go from the tilt bed into like a standing frame, and then you have to be able to, ridiculous, pat a balloon, which was like the highlight of my day then. Me and 3 others were all doing the same thing without falling over. And then once you'd done that, then you got to go wheelchair to standing on those walking frames. And then you could try a Zimmer frame, and then you could try crutches. So it wasn't a quick fix by the time I got to crutches. And also my main thing was when they said you've got to go back to bed, I was like, do I have to go through this whole tilt bed extravaganza again?
Yeah.
And I'm responsible for this. And they were like, it's fine. You need to use a wheelchair. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And it was like the next morning when my mum came in and was like, okay, so your hands are fine. They're not paralysed. There's nothing wrong with them. And yet they're why you're not using crutches. Talk me through it. And I was like, I don't know, but I just have to do what I'm told. And she was like, or we try and find crutches that don't hurt, and then you can try again. And I was like, well, there's an idea. So then it was like, okay, now we've got something to do. So both of us were like Googling where you can get crutches and stuff. And like, maybe someone in America's got them, maybe someone in Australia's got them, maybe China manufactured them. Someone must be doing this. And it was like, no. And we asked all the physios, we asked all the consultants. The consultant that did my operation was Austrian. I was like, do they have them in Austria? And he was like, no. And I was like, what do people do? And he was like, they use a wheelchair. And I was like, but if they could be walking. And he was like, well, they do a few steps around their house and then they use a wheelchair the rest of the time. And I was like, what? So then we were like, okay, fine, this is great. So then mum was like, and mum needed a distraction as much as I did. Like, I think both of us mentally, you cannot underestimate the impact of a serious injury like that, not only on the person it happens to, but the immediate ripple effect around them is horrendous. And I think the other thing is that you are the only, and it's the same with any chronic illness, you're the only person that knows the full extent.
Yeah.
Even if you think you've told everybody, there's so much that you are carrying that you don't realise. But you can become consumed by it to a point where it's not positive. And I think that's where we were both feeling like, we're not dwelling on the negative. Like, we're not these people. I don't want to be this person. I want something productive to do. And so then it was like, right, we're going to find crutches. So then it was like, we're going to find 5 pairs of crutches. We're going to get these ones. We're going to get these ones. And they all came. And I was like, they're worse. Like, I actually think the hospital ones are the best option, but it's the handle and the bottom, because the handle gave me blisters, which then ended up, I strained my elbow. I then had a shoulder injury. Then I got neck cramp. When you get, and then you jar your neck the whole time. All of that was happening. And I was like, the second it rains, I'm too scared. So I don't go anywhere. I was just like, wheelchair. Don't look at the going
I got
out.
exactly the same. Autumn, winter, I was like, leaves that are on a wet floor, like on a wet sidewalks.
But hospitals
terrified.
And supermarkets have that lino flooring.
Yeah. Impossible.
It's like an ice rink.
Yeah, it really is.
You just
it really is.
Okay, so I'm not going to buy food and I'm not going to go to the hospital. Like, what? No.
Yeah.
So that's when we were like, okay. And then when we'd found 2 or 3 that we thought, okay, we know it's the handle, we know it's the bottom. Now we need to find someone that makes them, that we can have a conversation with. So that took a while. And to be fair, mum did that. She went to trade shows. She did everything. But again, she was doing stuff. She was going, she went into Europe, then she'd come back and I'd be like, how was it? Who did you meet? Like, it gave us such a positive thing to focus on. And also that time period is so slow, and you're doing physio for 4 hours a day and you have nothing to talk about. And every single one of my mum's friends, my aunt's friends were ringing going, can she wiggle her toes? Can she wiggle her toes? Can she wiggle her toes? Is she standing up? Can she do this? Is she going to be able to live by herself? Is she ever going to get married? And I was like, and all I can say is, no, still can't wiggle my toes. Yeah. So at that point, it was like, no, but you know what? We've discovered that there's not a single crutch in the entire world that won't give you blisters. And they'd be like, what are you up to? So it was then something else to talk about. Yeah. So then the more we did, the better it got.
Yeah.
And mum clearly knew that I was going to need something distracting, but also my plans to go and work in advertising, she obviously realised were not going to happen. And I think she was trying to create something that I could potentially do and manage my illness at the same time. So I think her intentions were a lot more clever than she'll let on.
Then that it's just about the crutches.
Yeah, she's like, oh, look. Yeah. So, but also, then I was discharged from hospital. I was walking on 2 crutches, but I was still in a wheelchair. Yeah. Like, I was walking on 2 crutches for rehab, but I was in a wheelchair day to day, and they discharge you. And the second you're sent home is quite a shock. because it's no longer this like temporary, you've got every nurse around you, you're really safe, you're suddenly not safe.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out on your own. Everything goes wrong. You know, if you don't take your drugs at the right time, you've got a problem. If you don't sleep properly, you've got a problem. If you do your physio an hour earlier than yesterday, you've got a problem. It was like this horrible, oh my God, this is my life now.
Yeah.
And mum was going through it and dad with me at the same time. And I was back living with them. Like what 19-year-old moves back in with their parents? Like it's everyone's idea of hell.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be making your life worse. And you don't want to be making my life worse. We've just got to figure this out.
Yeah.
But what the business also did was mum was like, right, we've got, we then developed handles that didn't hurt you. We got squidgy grips so they didn't then cause a blister. So you wouldn't get joint pain, you wouldn't get blisters. Then we got rubber tips sorted so they wouldn't slip, but they also weren't rock solid. So you wouldn't then get jarred. Then we had, you can see that there's like 2 options for a cuff. So in Europe, you'll know, they have an open cuff, and in the UK, they have a full cuff. In America, they still have these, which I'm just like, we're not doing those. They are
the
so bad for you.
What is it? Under armpit ones.
Underarm. Mad.
Yeah.
Mad that they still use them. So we'd like figured out all the bits and then got back into hospital, and I took them back into the physio, and I was like, guys, would you just have a go? And the woman who'd been beaten up in the club was like, oh my God, I can use these. I can do it. And she had weak grip because of her neck injury. And she was like, because they're molded, I don't need to hold on. I can just rest my hands, but I can still use them. So I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. But they were all like, they're black. Why are they black? And I was like, because I don't want to have a conversation about my injury. And they were like, you might not. But she was like, I've got a party on Friday night. I don't want table out runs. Can you do some pink ones?
Really?
Can you do some spotty ones? And I was like, at that point, like I did not use anything other than black for the first 6 years after my accident.
Wow.
Like I was so, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want them to be a feature. I don't want anything to do with colour, or like, I am not okay with what's happened to me. And I don't want anyone to think I'm having a fun time. She was like way past me. So I was like, oh, okay. So then
how long after because you said that this was the first 6 years. So how long after your accident, let's say, was it that you came back to her with the first prototype of the now Cool Crutch?
Maybe just under a year. It was just before I went back to uni, and I went back in September 2000, and we registered the business at the end of September 2006. So like 11 months after my accident. Yeah, basically she said, I want colours. And then everyone else was like, I want colours. And we were like, okay, well, we'll colour them, and then we'll just buy like 10 and try and sell them.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. But so my point originally was, because we then were like, we're going to sell them, we needed a website, we needed a logo, we needed all of the marketing. And mum then was like, oh, I found a web developer, but they're 3 hours away. And I'd be like, what? Is there not one like half an hour away? She'd be like, no, but we need to get in the car. So get in the car and we'll figure it out. And it was like her way of being like, you can do a 3-hour journey.
Yeah, beautiful.
And what needs to happen during a 3-hour car journey for you to be okay? Because I'd rather you figured it out whilst I'm sitting next to you than you go back to uni thinking you're fine and suddenly you can't do a 10-minute journey in a car. Yeah. So she definitely knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And I was having a horrible time finding out that, my bladder doesn't work, my bowels don't work, my legs don't work. I can't park near enough to a loo or a supermarket or a anything. But it meant we got a blue badge. We found out that I was, eligible for benefits. Like I could get equipment, I could get support with my car that would help give me everything I needed to live independently. It wasn't really a mission to sell crutches. We had very limited stock. The worst website you've ever seen in your life. We had always done it with a fulfillment house, so we didn't have to pick or pack or ship a box because I couldn't do it and mum didn't want to. So we'd kind of set it up in the most like basic form. Yeah. But ironically, at the same time, so Facebook didn't exist when I had my accident. How weird is that? That's how old I am. Oh God. But I registered my account when I was in hospital. So like advertising, everyone was like, you need a shop. You need to get in the paper. You need to, and we were like, no, that's not going to work. We don't care about sales. We're literally doing this to be able to give them back to the people in hospital with me. And as far as mum's concerned, she just wants to wheel me around the country and check I don't, have a mental breakdown. So it really wasn't intentionally created to do what we're doing now.
That's amazing, right? If you think about like that,
so weird, isn't
story, it's so, because now, like, let's really fast forward to where you are at now.
I mean, physically, I had our crutches meant I could walk and do my rehab on feet immediately. I was on 2 crutches for probably 2 or 3 years and then went down to 1. So I'm now on 1. Still have limited feeling and movement from my waist down. My left foot is mainly affected, but I've gone on to have 2 kids, which they said would never happen. Yeah. I am working, which they said would never happen. I'm working full time, which they said would never happen. Yeah. So like everything that I think I could or should have lost, I haven't. And I obviously, now that I sell them, I'm going to say this, but I'm like, if those were hospital crutches, I would not be doing what I'm doing now. No. Like I couldn't build up the stamina. I couldn't move enough to have and you know, like your energy is the biggest thing when you're living with a chronic illness. Yeah. If you don't have the equipment to allow you to use the energy that you've got efficiently, you use it on everything that you don't need it for. Don't want to be keeling over after a shower. Like if you can get from your bed to the shower comfortably without expending all your energy, you've then got an opportunity to do everything else. And I think that's what our crutches gave me. Yeah. And that's what still is like the fire in my belly to be like, everybody deserves the kit to give them the best quality of life that they can have. Yeah. And so much of chronic illness and disability and long-term conditions are restricted by the opportunity available to the people who need it. And I'm like, that's wrong. Like there should be a menu. Even if they're expensive, because you know, we're still the only people doing this with crutches. And that means it is expensive because no one else is doing the volume. Even if it's expensive, everyone deserves to see a menu. Yeah. You shouldn't be told your only option is this horrible, clanky silver thing that's also going to snap. No one told me that. I snapped 3 pairs of hospital crutches.
No, and I think
you'll know, like you then have other injuries.
Exactly what you were saying with joint pain in your elbow, in your shoulder, your trapezius muscle, like in the muscles. I mean, it is one after another. Also because obviously our shoulders aren't built to carry all of our weights. You know, you're building towards that as well, but having good equipment. And I completely agree with what you say. I always say, like, I'm just as disabled as the environment that I'm in disables me. That's the whole reason why we moved from Amsterdam to Ibiza, because I have a lot more independence here.
It's a very hard thing to believe, and that you kind of don't want to believe that the world is making it harder for you. But I really, you know, I lived in London for 10 years and I talk about it a lot because a lot of what I do now is helping people set up businesses and scale businesses, because it's given me so much independence and so much purpose. But I'm like, I lived in London for 10 years. It was an hour-and-a-half commute to one of the places I worked. Like I needed 6 hours sleep to recover from that. And
Only from that?
Yes. So it's like, obviously I was terrible at that job. I don't think I was that bad, but like I did not enjoy it because I was half cut by the time I got there. I was like, can't do anything. Yeah. But I never really thought moving and leaving London would have such a positive impact on my well-being and my ability to, you know, lots of people talk about capacity versus capability. Yeah. And I think that's something I've always really struggled with, is I'm like, my capacity is so limited because of my health, but my capability, I'm like, I'd be the next Steve Jobs if do you know what I mean? Yeah. But because I don't have the capacity and I have to manage that as much as I have to manage the rest.
And how do you manage that? How do you manage that?
I mean, I'd love to say I've mastered it. I definitely haven't. And I think my biggest thing is that my brain works at about 10 times as fast as my body. And I still, because I have the signals that would say I'm about to collapse in a heap 99% of the time, I push past them, which is not something I should be doing, but I can't, it's in my nature that I think my body will stop me when it's had enough. Yeah. So it's so boring. I don't do 2 days of working in the office in a row. So I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the office, and Tuesday, Thursday, I try and work from home. I try and not have meetings on a Wednesday so that I have one full day in the middle of the week as a buffer if I am ill, so that I know that I'm never more than 2 days away from a break. I drive to and from work. The office is a separate place to home, which it sounds ironic, but I'm like, I think it's really positive. It's a 10-minute drive. It's really good for me. It's totally accessible, completely flat, ramps everywhere. I don't travel more than twice a month. So like I went to London on Monday. I won't do that again for 2 weeks. So it's like, there's lots of little things. Yeah. I'm also not anti, because I now have 2 children, that has upped the ante a lot. And I have to really watch my physical expenditure.
Yeah.
So like I won't do a fitness class on a Friday because it will put me in bed on the weekend.
Yeah.
Or I won't do a massive walk on a Friday.
Yeah.
I'll do it with the kids on Saturday and then we'll watch a film on Sunday. So it's kind of being aware of like, I'm not invincible. I can't do 2 full days of work in a row. I also can't do 2 full days of childcare in a row. Like you do just need to pace yourself.
Yeah. And have you accepted that?
Don't know.
Or is it still
I feel like age is really taking its toll, which I think you never feel old. So I'm like, I don't feel older than I did when I had my accident, but my body has changed a lot. I'm less about the quantity and more about the quality of what I do. And I'm also focused on, I've tried my best with what I've got. And I think that's where I'm really comfortable. Do I get it right? No. Do I have an unexpected day of doom every week? Yes. Like, would I like to be doing more than I am? Yes. Do I not? I don't resent it, but I do overcompensate probably more than I should. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you ever, I feel like you never really get the balance right, but I think it's as good as it probably could be at this point.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful answer.
Take it.
I think, I mean, it's a difficult one because when are you fully accepting? But I recognize a lot in your story about, my brain wants so many things and my body just physically can't keep up with that. And it's super frustrating, but it's also very hard to like manage that and to keep that in balance. And when do you choose to stop and when do you choose to push through? And that fine line is just so difficult to get right.
It's really hard. And I also think when I had kids, it did change because I was like, it's not just about me. Like if I could burn myself out and do 2 weeks traveling and then crash for 3, I would do that. Whereas now I'm like, I can't do that.
No.
Like that's going to impact them. Well, it does. They don't, honestly, children don't really care, but it impacts me. And then my mental health takes a nosedive because I feel guilty that I put myself first and then cost their time as a result. So I think, and also, they always said, I remember saying to the doctor, the nice one, will I ever dance on a table again? And he was like, maybe when you're 40. And I was like, great. I'm 40 this year. Yeah. So I'm like,
are you going to dance on a table?
I'm going to be yes, hell yes. I'm like meant to be dancing on a table in 5 months' time. But I'm also like, I don't think I ever really thought past 35. Yeah. And now I'm like, you have got 2 children that I want to see get married and have kids. You going hell for leather now at a cost to the end of your life is not worth it. Yeah. So the more I can do less now, better, the longer I'll be able to do more for, if that makes sense.
100%.
It's a really hard path to navigate when no one gives you a map. Yeah. And also, no 2 injuries are the same. No 2 like hormones are the same. No 2 births are the same. So like, I don't know what's coming. No. I know it's coming and I know it's not going to be easy and there will be unexpected things that happen, possibly to do with my injury, possibly not, possibly both. Yeah. But all I can really do is worry about the next 5 days and do what I can with it. Yeah. And know that really if I put my head on a pillow at the end of the night and I think I tried my best, I'm happy with that.
Then that's good enough. And is that something that might have learned from this whole experience as well? Maybe if it wasn't the case, then you would have probably gone for like the highest of highest bars for yourself as well. And maybe now
I think the weird thing is that when you get to an age where your friends are having kids, their priorities shift. Mm-hmm. And also age comes with illness, which is a horrible thing to say. Yeah. But I think, I now have friends of mine that had births that didn't go well or got really bad postnatal depression. Or, 2 of my best friends have had cancer in the last 12 months. And when that starts to happen, you suddenly realize how much further ahead you are mentally because of what you've lived with for as long as you've lived with. But at the same time, I've found it very stressful because I know what they're going through because I've been through it. And that's still the driving force behind the business is I do not want anyone to end up in the shoes that I did in 2005 because there was a lack of information or a lack of support. Yeah. So that's really difficult. Yeah. But I do think mentally I'm a much better off, stronger person and situation because of what I've been through. And you
At a
can't
young
learn
age.
that. You can't,
No.
And also when it comes
Yeah.
to business, you're
Yeah.
so resilient. You're so good at
Yeah.
dusting yourself off and being like, that was an absolute shocker, but we have to keep going.
Let's go again.
Like,
Yeah.
like you just have to be like, well, I'm still standing, so
Yeah.
on to the next thing. Like
Yeah.
that comes with horrid things,
Yeah.
and resilience comes out of trauma. And would I
Yeah.
want it? You know, everyone says, oh, I really want my kids to be resilient. I'm like, no, you don't. You really want them to be resilient, but you don't want them to go through the thing that they have
No.
to go through to become
No.
resilient. But it is a positive if it
Yeah.
happens to you. And I think I wouldn't take that. I would take the physical back of my injury in a second if someone said you could delete it. But I don't think I'd take what I've learned
From
and
it.
the power it's given me in every element.
Yeah.
Like I would not be running a business if I hadn't been through what I'd been through. And I think I'd be rubbish at it if I was. So, you know, you
'cause
take what you
need
can from it.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. I genuinely think that that's beautiful because it is, as you say, like it's not something that you can really learn unless you go through something. And I also think that especially people dealing with a chronic illness or disability who set up their businesses, we need to be so efficient and effective, but also really determining like, okay, this is not important enough for my energy because I don't have 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day of energy that I can put into work. So what is really a priority and what isn't? So
And so I've done quite a lot of work with there's something called the Lilac Review, which is a government-backed review into disabled entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And we are, I can't remember what the statistic is, but we are more likely to generate profit in a business than a non-disabled person. And I'm like, that's because we have an acute awareness of what is worth doing and what is not, and what's going to move a needle and what is not. So that we're much more focused on where our time is spent in the most effective way because we don't have as much time. And I think when you combine that with being a parent, for example, you don't, you know, before I had kids, I would be like, I'll work till 8 o'clock at night. Like, was I doing anything productive? Absolutely not. Was I just doing it because I thought it looked good and I might get a promotion? 100%. Now I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that.
No.
Like it really gives you that like razor sharp focus on if I want to go for a walk with my kids for an hour this weekend, I cannot do a spin class between now and Friday.
No.
Fine.
No.
Like it's
Exactly.
so, and I think that's really, really, really positive. So
yeah,
that's
amazing. That's good to hear. Very promising
good.
to hear as well for
Yeah,
everyone
that's why
who
I'm not
wants
spinning, Aline.
You know, no.
I'm not doing
Okay,
any
fair
more
enough.
exercise.
No more
I am
pedaling
done
on a
this week.
bike.
Yeah.
Oh
Just
my
justifying
God,
my sacking off January
Yes.
resolutions.
If there was one thing that you would like to see for yourself in 5 years from now, both professionally and personally, so basically 2 things, what would that be? So you 5 years from now, professionally and personally.
5 years from now,
Mhm.
at least, so we have 50,000 customers now, which is my like get out of bed number. I'm like,
Amazing.
we have helped 50,000
Yeah.
people not feel defeated by their physical ability. If that could be 100,000,
Amazing.
that would be I'd be really happy in 5 years' time. Personally, I think like doing less things that make me stressed. So I think there's a lot. It's very difficult when you do as much as I do to understand what's my injury versus what's lifestyle. And I think there's so many, you know, you'll know it when people are like, have you tried turmeric? Have you tried yoga? And you're like, yes, I've tried it all. I stand on my head as much as I can. But I think to have a better lifestyle as a result of being calmer, I think would be I don't want to be stressed, basically. I want to be protecting my health for as long as I can. And I'm not 100% confident that I am doing that now, but I am aware that I'm trying to make it better. I don't know if I ever will get that right, to be honest, but yes,
No, but
I would like
it's a good
to be.
intention to set for 5 years from now.
Like I basically on my deathbed want to be like, I didn't go at 450 miles an hour and kill myself. I did what was the best thing I could do. And I've lived a very happy, good life, all things considered.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
It's beautiful. And what would you tell your 19-year-old self who's in a hospital bed right now with the knowledge and the experience and the life that you've built right now? What would you tell your younger self?
It's going to be completely fine. You are going to be completely fine. And nothing that happens to you physically changes who you are as a person, ever. So I think one thing that I always really struggled with is as soon as you're disabled, people were like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I am still really ballsy, really rude, really funny. Like, I am still the same person. I just have like different ways of living.
Yeah.
But I think you start to doubt yourself. And I'm like, don't doubt yourself. Just hold on. It will be fine. But you do have to hold on for, I think it took me 10 years. I think on average, it's probably 5 now. But I want that to be a year for everyone who has a diagnosis or an injury. But I think you've got to brace yourself and hold on.
Even though it is for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. It will come good. And nothing is out of reach. You just have to hold on and trust that you are still you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your story and being your full self. I really, really love you. You know that. Like, you know, we've been speaking.
Thank you.
Like, love your energy, love your story, love how indeed ballsy and honest and raw and vulnerable you are. And I love everything that you do for the community. I love your crutches as well. I mean, I've got 2 pairs of crutches. I got married with your crutches. So
I know. Oh my God, your wedding photos are absolutely amazing. Still, honestly, that is like one of those things whenever they come into my inbox, if it's a wedding or a big birthday or a baby, I'm like, to be there in big milestones is so cool.
I know.
Like, yeah.
It really, really,
congratulations.
Really is.
Very, very exciting.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
So I am on Instagram. The brand is at Cool Crutches. I'm at Amelia.Peckham. And then our website is www.coolcrutches.com.
Amazing. I'll put everything in the show notes as well. So for anyone and everyone listening, I put it in the show notes, and please leave a comment down below in the episode what you thought of the conversation, and sending you so much love, Amelia. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.